All right, welcome everybody. So my name is Nicky Pike. First, I just want to introduce myself. I am the field CTO for Coder. I've been with Coder since January. I've been in this industry for approximately 30 years. Seems like a long time. But I've come up from doing everything from Xbox Live. I helped design and build Xbox Live in their data centers. I ran private cloud for CVS Health, worked at VMware trying to bring development and platforms to developers for them, and now I'm working at Coder, and we've got a product that we bring out that's going to help with that development. My whole career, I've been interested in helping the developers, and one of the biggest things that we're seeing now come up is AI. And kind of the whole purpose of this talk, what started this talk was this gift right here. I was on LinkedIn, and somebody made a post that said vibe carpentry. I'm going to propose that vibe coding is analogous to vibe carpentry. This is what you get when you do vibe carpentry. And I'm not going to lie, I was defensive at first. I got defensive on this post because I thought somebody was using fear to try to dissuade people from doing something that I thought was going to be huge. It was going to be very beneficial for everyone, not just the enterprises, not just for developers, but everyone. So as I was going back and forth with this guy on LinkedIn and we were talking about this, I actually came to the realization when I was looking at this that they were actually making the perfect argument for why citizen development, why we want to use AI for code development is such a good idea. So first, raise of hands, who here has done DIY in their house? They've done something in their house DIY. Everybody, okay? Keep your hands raised if your house is still standing. Everyone. This is the same thing. What we see in the DIY industry is very analogous to what we see with AI development today. So one of the things that this LinkedIn post, when they were trying to be snarky and they were trying to instill this fear in people that they kind of forgot, was that this is, vibe carpentry already exists today. It's called the DIY market. It's a $775 billion industry, and they're looking at going by 2033, we're looking at that being $1.1 trillion industry. So this has given birth to things like Home Depot, Lowe's, Ryobi Tools, a lot of HGTV type of shows that are coming out there to all help people be DIY within their homes. These things didn't come into dominance because they didn't just stumble into dominance. They came because they realized that there were millions of people out there that had a desire, they had a need, that they wanted to do something that didn't require a licensed contractor, but it was a little bit outside their comfort zone. They needed some help. They needed some support to do this. And they didn't want to tackle this alone. So they realized that there's this huge middle ground between call a contractor for everything or just let it sit and die, let it break things. They needed something to come in. So this sounds very familiar to what we're seeing with AI today. We're seeing people come in and say, AI can help you generate code. We're seeing both sides of that argument. AI is coming for everybody's jobs. It's going to take all software development jobs. Or AI is so horrible that nobody should ever use it for anything. But there's this huge middle ground in the middle. Just like with the DIY industry, they found that there's the extremes, but there's this huge middle ground. There is this capability when we're looking at this that with DIY construction, people, they have the desire, they have the ability, but they don't have the knowledge. They don't have some of the skill sets to go out and do that. That's where Home Depot, they started putting on classes. HGTV started putting on shows to help people with this, to say you don't need to hire a licensed contractor. This same thing happens with AI development today. And as with DIY construction, we're seeing that the tools are improving. The tools are what's creating this and helping people get better at what they're doing. So what does AI do that's a little bit differently? AI removes that technical barrier that has made citizen development very risky. So, you've got business users that are struggling with syntax. They don't know code syntax or the documentation that they're trying to read to use something. You have problems with how do I connect to data? What do I do for deployment? Well, AI is becoming that tool that helps them. So with AI, they can come in with plain English, they can talk to AI and they can describe exactly what they want. AI is going to handle those technical details for them, for the most part, right? So you've got a marketing manager in your company that says, hey, I need to create a dashboard that shows my campaign, my ROI over my campaigns year over year. They'll put that in with the IT team. The IT team is going to look at it. It's going to go on a backlog, and it could sit there for weeks or months because that's not what the core of what the IT team does. That's not what the software development do. They're there to help generate revenue for the company. So that's not going to be important to them. But with this, they can come in, that marketing developer can sit down on a weekend, he can talk to AI and say, this is what I need. I'm going to describe what I need. AI is going to be kind of my own personal developer and help me do this. And when you get done, the user is just validating the logic. They're not having to validate the code syntax. They're not having to look to see if anything is done correctly. Does it work or does it not work? This is kind of solving those issues of we don't have the knowledge to do this, but we have the desire. It's almost like YouTube tutorials, right? It's a better form of YouTube, but it's more personalized and it's more interactive. It's instead of just watching a tutorial, I can now talk to the tutorial and say, well, this is what I really wanted to do, and the tutorial can give me back information. That's what AI is providing here. So they don't really need to understand how to build functions. They don't need to understand which language they want to use. They just got to have a really good idea and the desire to sit down and do that. AI is going to handle the rest of this stuff for them. And when you look at this, so if we look at this analogy between DIY construction and AI, they're kind of built on the same principles. They're built on the same pillars. So from the open source side, we also see these same pillars. First is transparency. We put the code out there. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see what the good is, what the bad is, and they can comment on that. So, you know, if you want to go in, I'm kind of talking about the wrong thing, aren't I? But when you look at these pillars, the tool provides the ability, it provides the immediate ability to see failure, right? If you're doing this in DIY, if I go in and I replace my socket, I got a GFCI socket that's going to trip if I wire it wrong. If I want to rewire my whole house, I should probably ask an IT or ask a professional to come in and help me with that. Those natural boundaries that we see, the complexity of the problem is going to create those boundaries. So, you know, we don't want to do something hard, right? We don't want to do something risky. We're going to be able to understand that, and the complexity of that problem kind of helps us understand where our limitations are. And we see that same thing with DIY, right? We see this with, if I want to go in and change out a light socket, I don't need to talk to my local government to get a permit. But if I want to rebuild a wall, then I've got to go get permit. I can still do it, but I've got somebody to come in and double check with me, make sure I done it right, make sure I did it safely. Same concept here. And the third pillar is that we're looking for partnership. We're not looking to replace. When we look at the tools that came up today, the air nailer did not replace the carpenter. It made the carpenter quicker, right? When we look at laser levels, that didn't remove the ability for somebody to come in and do trim. It just made the job easier. Circular saws cut wood faster, but we still need the framer to come in and use that. So it doesn't replace the professional. It augments them. It helps them make them better. And then we get things like the shared knowledge that we see through the YouTube and the HGTV and the subreddits that we see that come in and help people understand how to use those tools, and it augments them. It allows them to do things rather than having to go and spend the money for a professional to come in. They understand what's going to happen. So what did all this do? It made a better customer, because now customers can say, I don't need you to come in for everything. That licensed professional doesn't want to come in for something that's a $50 job. The homeowner can do that. But now the homeowner has a better understanding of what their requirements are and what they actually need to provide the professional when they do need to call them in. It helps them understand what their swim lane is. And that's where open source principles really come in. So DIY construction and what we're seeing is it succeeded because of transparency. It succeeded because of shared knowledge. These are the same things that we see in open source principles today. YouTube became the largest technical industry, college out there today. There's not a person in here that hasn't went to YouTube to figure out how to do something, whether it be code, whether it be auto maintenance, whether it be home DIY. It became this technical industry. It created shared knowledge. It took all of the knowledge that was in somebody's head, a professional's head, your auto mechanic or your construction guy, and it put it out there for everyone to see. And it also gave, with that transparency, that shared knowledge, it helps prevent people from doing other mistakes because you get the comments on that. You've got entire subreddits that are dedicated to people asking questions. So we're taking that knowledge and we're also giving it community review. The more eyes that you get on something, which is a core principle within open source software, applies to this as well. The more eyes, the quicker you're going to see mistakes. So you look at those YouTube videos, you're going to see comments that tell you, hey, you're not doing this right, you should have done it this way, or this is unsafe. Or you're going to get another person that comes in and says, yeah, this is right, but here's an alternative that maybe fits your use case better, for whatever that may be. That same thing is going to apply when we're talking about citizen development. We want transparency, multiple eyes to see problems. We want to be able to put the code out there. We want to use that shared knowledge that we get. And in this case, AI is providing that shared knowledge because at its core, what is AI? AI is a pattern recognition and repeat system. It goes out, it looks for the patterns that it's seen out there, it provides those patterns back to people, and it gives you what it thinks is the best optimum. It is that research tool. It stops the endless research of what we're seeing. Those successful approaches, they become templates. When you look at these YouTube videos for DIY, the ones that have the most stars, the most comments, the most views, you can kind of guess that those are probably some of the best ones to look for. AI is doing that for you as well. It's looking at all these patterns and saying, these are the patterns that I see the most, this is what I'm going to apply. Now, I know a lot of people are out there saying, well, yeah, but maybe it's giving you a bad pattern. It could be. It absolutely could be, right? But when we're talking about citizen development, we're also talking about a different risk profile. We're not talking about enterprise code for most citizen developers today. We're talking about, me and you wanting to build something for our kids, how to track our chores or how to track my workouts. There's a different risk profile, and we've got to understand that. So a good example of this, what does this mean? Base 44 is a company that sold to Wix for $80 million. It was created by Moore Shlomo. In the first 6 months that he released it, he had over 250,000 developers or users of this platform, and he was bringing in $3 million a month in ARR. He used AI to build this platform, and the whole platform itself is for Vibe coders. It's to use AI to help other people build their applications. He didn't build this because it was something that he thought was right. He built it because he realized that there was this gap. There were a lot of people out there that wanted to build stuff, but they didn't have the technical ability. We could use AI to help them do that. And what is vibe coding? I mean, we've all heard the term, but it's hobby coding for the most part, right? Vibe coding is, people that want to build software for a certain reason, and they want to do it without necessary skill sets in some places. They want to be able to talk to AI, describe what they want, make me that application that tracks my workouts, something that works best for me, and they want to do that through natural iteration. Moore did this through open source processes. He put this, he put Base 44 out there, open and transparent. This is what I do. He built upon the capabilities and the idea that this is something that people really want. People want to be able to do this. I don't want to have to go hire a development firm to do something that I'm only going to use in my house. And, this is not something that's theoretical. This was an $80 million business that he built, and he did it in 6 months. We see other examples of that coming up today. This is a very extreme example, but it does show you what the art of the possible is. When we start talking about taking citizen development into enterprises, that's where things change. Because citizen development in the enterprise, think of your marketing departments, your HR departments, your sales departments. They have internal tools that they want to build. They're not core to the business. They're not something that is actually revenue generating, but they're core to that department. They're something that's going to help ease the burden of that department, make that department better, which in all brings up the company. So going back to that manager that wants to make a internal dashboard showing their ROI on their campaigns, that can go and sit on an IT development's backlog for a long time. That creates friction between those departments and then IT development problems because the IT department is only looking at their core business. They're looking at the things that they want to build that generate revenue. The internal tools are going to go lower in priority, but that doesn't mean it's not affecting the business. So what we use is Coder. Coder is a way to go in and implement this. So Coder brings governance and security to that citizen developer. We don't want to turn the citizen developer within our enterprise off on our production databases, right? We don't want to give them access to the client applications. You want to put guardrails around them so that they're operating in a safe way. Coder does that. Coder brings in and allows you to bring the transparent workspaces, they're consistent workspaces, and in following those OSS principles, they're doing things like the transparency. We're gonna let these be open, the IT can come and look at them. We're going to do shared knowledge. The IT team already knows. We operate, say, in Java, or we operate in Go. That's a language that we understand and that we can quickly iterate through. So they're going to build the environment so that the citizen developer who doesn't have that knowledge, that's what they're automatically going to build in. It helps both sides. And they're going to create that community review by checking this in, by creating an environment that says, hey, you're going to check this code into a specific place. It's safe from the rest of our code base that we're using for the enterprise. Now we've got that visibility where IT development can go in and look at it if they want to. Again, we go back and talk about that risk profile. Maybe this is an internal tool that never goes outside, but we still want to make sure it's secure. They still want to make sure it's performant. Now the IT team can have access to that by providing it. Doesn't mean that citizen development is the end-all be-all. There are risks to this. That housing collapse that we saw was not there. It didn't collapse because we have a DIY industry. It didn't collapse because Home Depot exists. It collapsed because it was done by somebody that didn't understand wind loads on the load-bearing surfaces of that house. So, we do the same thing in software. Disasters happen when we let people build things in isolation on their local laptops, when they don't have the support that they need to make sure that they're doing it correct. So again, a quick show of hands. Who has shadow IT in their enterprise? Got 2 guys. I don't believe that, right? Shadow IT is what happens when you have things that people want to use. You have the HR managers that want to create something and they know that AI can help them. Or you have something that your developers think will make them more productive, but we're not giving them the capability to go use that. When we do things in isolation, that's where we run into disasters. If we don't give finance the proper tools to go build the system that they need, then maybe they end up having a logic error that costs money. If we don't give IT and the developers the things that they need, then maybe they're going to start copy and pasting code into public chat GPT. And guess what? You just leaked your IP, right? Now that corporate IT is out there in the wild. You don't want that. But if you provide something, if you use Coder, you use tools of that nature to provide a framework in which the developers and the non-developers can come in and utilize those tools. One, you scratch that itch. They have a place where they can go run these things. On the enterprise side, I'm able to secure that. I'm able to do it on my infrastructure. I'm able to do it in a way that I can guardrail and direct what they can get to, and I can do that safely. It speeds up this development because when you have environments like this and you allow that citizen developer to go in and do things, this is going to create a better partnership between your IT teams and the rest of their customers. And their customers may be the HR department or the sales departments. Because right now, if they're not going in and they're not working, they don't understand code, then there's a lot of friction there because why aren't you working on my tool? It's not important to us, right? We're building a customer tool. Yeah, but I need this. That's where you start getting the shadow IT and they start going in and they start trying to build their own. But there's a lot of friction. If you open this up and the developer, the citizen developer is able to start going in and understanding what IT is doing, if they're able to start working with AI and building their own prototypes, then they start understanding what IT is going through. They start able to articulate their requirements much better because they're having to articulate them to AI. They're able to provide things that are within the bounds of the enterprise with an understanding. It may not be to the level that the software engineers are at, but that's why we have software engineers. This becomes the new wireframe for our enterprise. Rather than going through months of meetings, the traditional way that we do internal tool development, you've got all these requirement planning meetings. Then you've got your code iteration. And then you've got the back and forth that says, no, I don't want the button on the right side, I want it on the left side. I don't want the page green, I want it red, right? Instead of doing that, those managers can now sit down for a weekend or a week and they can talk with AI secured within your enterprise and they can build out a system that says, here, IT, this is what I want. It's almost exactly what I want. Build this. Now your IT department already has code. All they've got to do is go in, they've got to look through it to make sure it's performant, it's secure. They got to dress it up. They got to put some spit and polish on it, make sure it's right. You've just took months out of that process. Not only that, you've improved the burden on the IT team because they're no longer having to manually write all that boilerplate code. They're no longer having to sit through those meetings. They're no longer getting hijacked and sidetracked by things like PTO and lunch breaks. AI is something that works for you all the time. It's always available versus what we have with our IT team where there's competing priorities. So what does this look like practically within the enterprise? There are things that you should do. There are things that the citizen developer shouldn't do. So when we're looking at things like internal tools that we talked about, workflow automations, we want to do integrations with some of our known systems, with something that we have on our department side, or you're building, data visualization. These are things that are absolutely perfect for your citizen developer. But you want to be able to augment that from the things they shouldn't do. They shouldn't have access to the customer-facing application code. They shouldn't have access to production databases where they might leak data that they don't need to. So you want to separate those out and leave those to the IT team. Something like Coder helps you put those boundaries in place while still enabling the citizen developer to come in and create what they want to do. The key thing is if somebody could go into base 44 and they could build this, then it's probably safe for your citizen developers to do it. But now they're doing it on your infrastructure, behind your firewall, behind your guardrails. And really, when we take a look at this is inevitable. This is something that's going to happen. The economics of this are incredible. So when we look at like base 44, $80 million acquisition, you look at Lovable, that's got a currently $1.8 billion valuation right now. These are proving that this is something that people want, and that extends to both people out in the community as well as people in enterprise. That traditional method of taking months and weeks, it's no longer working. It's slowing down the drive of business. It's slowing down the speed of business. There's a statement that says, perfect is the enemy of done. What AI enables for people is to do good enough work for that tool. It may not be the quality that you would ship to a customer, but if it's an internal tool, if it's something that the citizen developer needs, you don't need that type of quality. It solves an immediate problem for that developer or that department right now, which speeds up business. And really, when you think about this, organizations that figure this out now are actually going to have a pretty big competitive advantage when it comes to the rest of the market, because some of the best ideas don't come from people that have trained in software development all their life. Some of the best ideas come from people that use software. I use this. I understand this. They don't know how to build it, but I know a better way. I think I have a better way to do that. That's where you're going to get this innovation, is by allowing some of the people that may not be classically trained in this to come in and do the work. So how do you implement this within your organization? Well, let's go back to those open source principles: transparency, community review, and shared knowledge. You want those to be at the base of the framework that you're going to build. So, start with those. You're going to build the platform as you need to. You want to use those principles at the very onset. They need to be a part of what you're building. You're going to want to start with something like Coder, because infrastructure is the critical need here. You can't just turn AI loose within your company without putting guardrails around it. You can't just let people take AI and be able to have free access. You need to be able to have an infrastructure that will support both humans and AIs within the same constructs. So look at the infrastructure, look at platforms like Coder to provide that for you. Start in that ceiling fan zone, right? What people are doing today is basically the equivalent. What most citizen developers are doing today is the equivalent of wanting to install a ceiling fan. They're not wanting to go out. Just like in DIY, most our DIYers, they're not building subdivisions, on their weekends. Most AI citizen developers not building Fortune 500 authentication systems. So start with that ceiling fan zone. Start with something that has a clear boundary, that's small, and it has a known limitation. Go into your backlogs as an IT team. Look at your backlogs and see what can we do that we can actually provision, and let our HR and marketing departments go out and try to build their own. Make sure you set up that community review so that the IT team can come in and check. Decide what those tiering levels are. This is stuff that's safe for IT not to look at. But if we're going to access, say, a production database, before that can go and be deployed within the enterprise, be deployed internally, IT team reviews that. And make sure that those review processes are something that actually enable the developer, the citizen developer, not restricts them. You want to partner with your citizen developers within the enterprise. You don't want to police them. So at the end of this, it's not really a question of whether citizen development is going to become a thing. We're seeing, Coder and Base 44 are already showing that this is a massive market potential. This is something that's happening today. People are already doing it. So what you really want to do is make sure that you're building a framework, you're building your infrastructure and your policies to support that, but to support it safely. You want to apply those principles. You want to make sure that everything is transparent. You want to make sure that you have not only community review from the IT team, but also set up channels so that the other departments, the other developers, citizen developers that want to come in can take a look at things that already lurk, that they can learn from something that's already been done. They're not starting over from scratch. And you want to make sure that that collaboration is open between both your IT team and your citizen developers. And I think you're going to find that when we start taking things off of the development team, we start taking some of those tools that are not, revenue generating, that are not the core of what they're wanting to do, they quit getting that friction where we have the department saying, I need my tool and I need it now. You're going to see the IT team be more open to coming in and helping because they're not having to write hundreds of lines of code to help it. They're cleaning up. They're coming in and they're reviewing what was already created and they're polishing that up for them. The only real alternative that we see to this is not going to be no citizen development. The only alternative to this is you're going to have citizen development, but can you do it safely? Can you harness and can you build a framework to allow that to come in safely? Because if you don't, if you allow unmanaged AI use, if you allow unmanaged citizen development, I think we kind of all know how that story ends. All right. Any questions? Yes, sir. Here, let me bring you.
Hi, thank you for this session. I actually have 3 questions. You have kind of answered my third, but the first 2 are, first of all, you said that citizen vibe coding is more like who-be plugins. So does that mean that vibe coding is only for citizen developers, but not for the software developers at all? The follow-up question to that is, not follow-up actually, the second question is, we already have a mature market like low-code and no-code platforms that enable the citizen developers to build the prototypes, to build the entire applications, in fact, in a safe and secure environment. So why we should promote vibe coding, which is still a new concept, an immature concept, in comparison to something that is already mature, where we have established players in the market as well. And the third question is, sorry, I'm just saying all 3 so that you can answer one by one. The third question is, we have seen vibe coding platforms wiping out the entire production databases. So how can we avoid that? Yeah.
All right, so the first thing,
You also want to
use this. So the first question, if I understood correct, and let me know if I got this wrong, is something like this, is it just for the citizen developer or is it for actual developers? So when you look at things like Coder, it's for both, right? We want to take that code off the laptop. We want to put that somewhere secure. We want to make sure that we have access to all of our production systems. To go back to kind of your third question, the Replit example, right? We let AI loose. It went and wiped out a database. The reason for that is because some of these platforms that you mentioned for vibe coding, they're not really set up for enterprise. They don't have that governance. So going back to kind of my analogy, we need to allow people to do things, but in certain instances, we got to make sure that they've got the right permits and that we come back and inspect what they're doing. So something like Coder, or doing that type of platform where we can put that governance in, we can allow the software engineers, our IT department, have much more flexible access. Maybe they can go touch production. That's something that your company have to decide. They can see the entire code base. Whereas our citizen developers in there, we can isolate them to say, well, you get a separate Git repository. You have no access to our code database. And we're going to make sure that you can't go touch production. Now, when you look at some of these other platforms, they're really kind of being designed for the common man, right? Everybody out there, the guys that are in their home that want to develop this. They're not really built for enterprise. Yes, they have some enterprise licenses, but are they auditing everything that the AI is doing for them? Are they able to put those boundaries around? Most of these are SaaS services. How am I getting my code base in there in the first place? Is there any risk to putting that in? Is this the equivalent of copy and pasting my code base in the ChatGPT? Does one of these other platforms, which I won't name them by name, we know them, but if I do that, are they now going to be training on my code base for the next developer? We don't want that. So you've got to look at what is right for the enterprise. Did that answer your questions, or am I still missing one?
Yeah, it answered the first and the third question.
Okay.
The second question was, why not go with low-code, no-code platforms, which is already an established market? Why we should go with vibe-coding platforms?
Okay, so low code, no code, very graphically driven, but you're going to be confined by what that low code, no code system can do. It's not as open, it's not as capable as what you see with AI. When you look at AI, low code, no code is basically an application that it has, it's an if, then, but, right? I can click on this, it's going to do this thing for me. It's going to copy and code, and we can kind of train that. But when you look at AI, when you look at things that were trained by like ChatGPT or Claude Code, you have billions of lines of code out there that it's been trained on. You have much more patterns that it can recommend and that it can see. So, low code, no code, maybe you'll have a low code, no code for Java or, Python. With AI, I've now got all that wrapped up in one, plus I have a much wider view of what I can look at, and I can bring those patterns in.
Sorry if I'm running the conversation, but
Yep. One more time.
Do you think vibe coding will replace low-code, no-code?
I do. I think vibe coding, I still hate that term, right? Vibe coding. But I do think that citizen development is going to cause a lot of change. We're already seeing it today. In the enterprise, again, going back to that, AI is going to take over all our jobs. That is absolutely not true. What I do think that it's going to do is it's going to make that term software engineer mean something again. When you look at any other industry out there, an engineer is not the one. If I'm engineering a bridge, I'm not the actual one going out and building the bridge. I'm telling you, here's the design, here's the architecture, here's what needs to be done, here's the loads, here's the parameters. And then somebody else is doing that. In this case with AI, the software engineer is still that architect. They don't need to manually type code. Now, when we're looking at AI today, it's a junior developer. It's someone that's just coming out of college, right? I know the theory of what I'm doing. I know a lot of patterns, but I don't have the experience to know which one's right. That's where the software developer is still going to come in. It's a partnership. It is a tool. It is not a sage. And we need to start treating AI that way. And that's something, when you're going to use AI, you have to understand it's going to hallucinate. It's going to do things that it shouldn't do at times. And you got to be able to constrain that. And that's where you're looking into this framework that we talk about. Open, transparent, community source. Get him real quick.
Just one comment to the low-code, no-code thing. I mean, I don't know how much experience you have, but our business people doing low-code, no-code mostly is about, yeah, put that thing together, but it now doesn't work, please help, which is in the end not helping at all. Plus, at least, I mean, full disclosure, I'm coming from a German power company, so self-hosting is key for us, but most low-code, no-code stuff like Power Apps or something like this, SaaS as well. So it's really kind of hard to wire that up to whatever you have internally. So I'm rather in also the direction of vibe coding, but I quite like the analogy of, well, it's like do it yourself, but for code. You were mostly talking about enterprise and AI and vibe coding. What do you think about, well, custom solutions? Because you can do DIY with Etsy, and I kind of know on Etsy that it is DIY, but what about products that someone vibe coded in the internet and then just downloaded?
Okay. So when you look at that, we'll go back to base 44. Now, Moore was a developer, but he used AI to build that. We're seeing things out there today where people are vibe coding and they're actually making a market on those products. Now, we're also seeing the other side of that, where people are making a market on those products and, hey, guess what? You just leaked everybody's credit card information because you didn't secure it right. And that's where it comes back to a partnership, comes back to that engineer. I think, vibe coding is helping, it's the DIY market. It's helping people create applications that are good for them, but they're not necessarily good for everybody else, nor should they be considered good for everybody else. I can go in and I built my own house, right? Mostly. But I'll give you a quick story that kind of sums this up. When I was building our master shower, I framed the walls. I plumbed in the drain. I plumbed in the up. When I started doing the shower floor, I quickly realized I was out of my depth. If I screw this up, it's going to leak. It's going to cause damage into the ceiling and the roof of the floor below it. This is probably something I shouldn't be doing. So I called in an expert. I called in a tile guy, a professional. He comes in, takes one look. He says, I see what you're trying to do, but man, who did this? Because this is not right. I did that. And I know it's not right. That's why I called you, right? I called you in to fix this. But there were benefits of doing that. If we compare this to vibe coding, if we compare this to the citizen developer within the enterprise, that makes a very good analogy because I realized this is where I need to stop. If I do this, I'm messed up, right? I've got potential to really cause some damage. But when I brought the professional in, he was able to see what I wanted to do. He could visualize it because it's halfway built for him. We didn't have to go through a long, quote cycle. He didn't have to do all the work that's really not in his realm. He didn't have to build the pony walls. He didn't have to do any plumbing, make sure anything's set. He just had to build the shower pan. So something that usually takes a tile guy 3 to 4 weeks to do, he was actually out in 3 days. That got him onto the next job. Me, I didn't have to pay for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. I paid for 3 days at a time. And I only got the things that I wasn't comfortable with doing. That's what we're going to see in the citizen development ship as well. We'll go to her first and we'll come back.
AI needs people, or citizen development and other people need to know more about AI, I think. And I think we need to get more education in AI in school, because otherwise you can do really hard damage with it. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking. So you need to more...
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I think we're starting to see this right now because this isn't, it's not going to change. AI is here. Just the amount of growth that we've seen in the last year and a half is amazing. And you've got the people that I really think are going to be impacted by this, or maybe those software development guys that are just now finishing school. They didn't start with AI. They were trying to learn it. They're trying to catch up. I think there's going to be impact there. But schools are going to start doing this. I mean, hell, we've got little kids out there going in AI and building their own programs now. When we think back to when some of us were kids, the internet wasn't a thing. Now look at how it changed our lives. And that's one of the things that comes up. Well, this is going to be another AI bubble. We've got an AI bubble. We absolutely do. We do have an AI bubble. Everybody's trying to throw AI into everything now. That's going to create a bubble. But just like the dot-com era, there was a big bubble. People that were just not thinking about it and applying it in a good way burst, and there were a lot of bodies left behind on that. We'll see the same thing with AI, but guess what .com did? It completely changed our lives. Everything is an app now. The internet is within our grasp anywhere we turn. That became because of the .net, or the .com boom. We're going to see that same thing with AI. AI is here to stay. Now it's just a matter of, okay, if it's going to come in, how do we harness it? How do we get ready for it? If you wait for AI to be perfect, if you're one of those developers that say, I'll start doing AI when it gives me perfect code, you're going to get left behind, right? You got to start looking at this, again, as that human-AI partnership. AI is a tool. It's meant to augment and amplify the experience that you already have. It's not your sage.
As a developer and as a user, you need to know the boundaries, and you need to know the limitations of AI, and you need to know when it's going wrong.
Yep, agreed, 100%. And that's where we start talking about when we bring things in like Coder, where a lot of people, and a lot of these arguments that you see on the internet where it went and deleted my production database. It was because, a couple things. One, they didn't understand the abilities that it gave it. They didn't understand the reach that it had, and they didn't put any walls around it. So you've got to look. That's why I said the infrastructure that you provide for this framework is absolutely critical. You've got to be able to put walls around that. A lot of developers right now, shadow AI is a thing, just like shadow IT. They see that there's this ability for me to increase my productivity. There's this ability to increase my development, experience. But a lot of companies are very nervous because they hear the Replit stories. Well, we're nervous to bring this in. Well, what are your developers doing? Well, they're developers. They're going to find a way around stuff. So they're doing the stuff like copy and paste in our code into ChatGPT, or they're running things locally on their laptop. And when AI does exactly what you're going to do, because it 100% will, AI is going to hallucinate, it's going to get caught in a loop, it's going to throw 100,000 lines of code in your code base that you didn't want it to, and now you are spending 2 or 3 days, maybe even weeks, pulling that stuff out. But if you could do something like Coder, if you can put walls around it, if you can isolate what that agent is doing, okay, it goes out and it gets caught in that loop, which it's going to do at some point. Now I'm not having to backtrack all that. I'm not having to reverse engineer what AI screwed up for me. I can just delete that environment. I can start up a new one, and I can try a different approach. And, AI, everybody needs to learn and understand AI. I agree with you. However, I'm going to counter a little bit and say none of us understand the real power of AI right now. It's changing on a daily basis, if not, an hourly basis when you look at things coming out between different companies, between ChatGPT, OpenAI, Claude Code. They're releasing things at a furious pace, and every one of them is generally getting better. It's becoming more powerful. We've got to keep up and understand what's going on with that. You've got to be able to have those limitations because you don't know what's going to happen. Yep. Which I think the EU's done, right? We've seen some of the regulations coming around.
What are you doing to prevent bad and, let's say, inaccessible use cases? Like, by example, software programs like SaaS, like Canva.com, and Wix is doing. Let's say Canva and Wix is making it possible to make websites or designs, leaflets, for the Canva part that are completely inaccessible. By example, having color contrast schemes that are not accessible for people who are colorblind. Wix the same, but also, by example, making it easy and logical to make your website of your business without alternative text on images. What are you going to do that we don't have just a lot more inaccessible produced stuff, because it annoys me, the lack of accessibility?
Yep. I think that's a wonderful question. Now, what are we going to do? We're not. We provide development environments, right? It's up to the developer to do that. A lot of these things that you see coming out where they're inaccessible are because people don't understand the requirements of what they need to build. So that goes back to kind of that engineering. You got to have some skills to be able to do that. You got to be able to talk to AI and tell it that I need this to be accessible for colorblind. I need this to be accessible for, people that, different languages, things of that nature. That's not what they're doing. Most people are only thinking in their own brain of, well, this is what I need, which is where citizen development really kind of lives right now. But if we take citizen development to the enterprise, those same concepts that we're applying to our IT teams, we got to apply to AI. You got to be able to explain those requirements to them.
But should it be just better if the outcome generated with the AI is already accessible? For example, not having not okay color contrast, and if you have an image in your front end, always have an alternative. So why shouldn't you make it completely accessible by default without even the user asking for it?
Yep. So I think we're talking a little bit different things here, right? So you're talking about, okay, what can we do from an infrastructure perspective or an AI perspective? It's no different than asking your IT team. You can, as you do this, let me back up a little bit. What is one thing that AI is pretty good at building? Websites, right? It is pretty good at building websites. Why? Because there's hundreds of thousands of millions of them out there. So it's got a large base that it can compare and build to. Now, how many of those websites that you go to today are accessible? Not many, right? So AI doesn't know it. It doesn't know. It's got this huge pattern that it's looking at. And it doesn't include any of that. That's where the software engineer, that's why I'm saying this is a partnership. This is where the software engineer comes in and says, hey, Claude Code, you created me this website, but I need you to do it accessible, and here are the ways you're going to do it. That's where the engineer now becomes more of an architect. It leads that AI down the right way because AI doesn't know it needs to be accessible unless you tell it. Yep.
What would junior developers do in this scenario? Because it seems like junior developers are replaced by AI and vibe coding, and you need some expertise to review the solutions from AI. But maybe in 30 years you won't have any senior developers or experts anymore.
Okay. So I think it's a big argument. It's a lot of things that are being said out there today, right? We're going to replace all development. You're starting to see pushback on that. Right? I can't remember who it was. I think it was one of the AWS, maybe it wasn't. I can't remember who it was, but came back and said, we're not using AI to replace all our development. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I agree with it. Now, is there going to be impact with junior developers? Absolutely. Why? Because maybe if you're a junior developer that starts relying on AI to do your code, you're not following up, you're not treating it like a partner, you're not going back and confirming what it's doing and validating and fixing the mistakes that it makes, you're just blindly accepting, you kind of deserve what you get in that case, to be honest with you. But if you're a junior developer, because junior developers are still going to have projects, right? I still want your developer team, your manager is going to come tell you to work on something. You can use AI to do that. The quality of that code that you put out is still 100% reliant on the junior developer. So they can use AI to speed up their process, but at the end of it, they're still 100% accountable for that code that came out. If you're a junior developer that is not looking at that you're not, absolutely going in and doing that, you're going to suffer, right? Your senior developers are still going to exist because that junior developer, as it's working with AI, and I submit to you that as a junior developer working with AI, you have the ability, I say the ability, not the certainty, you have the ability to learn faster. Why? Because now I can have a conversation with someone, right? I can go out and look at things that my senior developer may not even know. I can look at different opinions. It is the biggest search tool and reply back tool that you'll ever find. Now, you look for different ways, it's still incumbent upon you. Okay, it gave me a different way to do this, it looks more performant. Now I've got to go make sure it works. I still got to test it, I still got to do all those things. Your senior developer is now looking at, okay, I'm now doing code reviews, and I'm also passing down to my junior developers what they need to go work on. But if you are a junior developer that either relies solely on AI, or you just give up and say, AI is going to take my job, then yeah, you're going to be impacted, right? When robotics came in, that's going to kill manufacturing. There will be no more manufacturing jobs. It didn't. The jobs that people already had, they changed, they evolved, they moved, but they didn't go away. Same thing with, public cloud. It's going to kill all data centers. It didn't kill all data centers. Provided an option. Now we got a whole new class of people, a whole new IT team that works just in public cloud because it's a little bit different than on-prem. So that job changed. People that were in data centers that maybe did get displaced are now working in public cloud, or they can't. That's incumbent upon you to figure it out. I think we're going to get kicked out of the room here soon.
Just a quick follow-up on that. From an engineer perspective or also from a senior developer perspective, I think it makes sense to say, okay, we are going to need developers, not junior developers, and senior developers at some point. So we have to invest again. But explain that to management these days to tell them, well, I could hire now 3 juniors, or basically AI could do the same thing. So when do you expect that management realizes, okay, their hiring decisions are not sustainable until they have to hire again juniors, because without hiring juniors, although they have this great learning experiences or opportunities, they won't get to a senior.
Just one sentence to add on this.
Yep.
Because a client asked me this, why should I hire the junior developers when the development job is going to be reviewers and orchestration, and that is the job of senior developers, and when I will need more developers, I will just rehire senior developers. Why should I train junior developers and then they leave my organization?
Okay. So both great questions. And we are way over time, but until somebody knocks on the door, I'm going to keep going. So for the first one, when do we think managers are going to figure out that they made the wrong decisions? Those that are saying that I don't need junior developers anymore, I'll just hire AI. When AI goes and deletes their public, their production database, right? When they start seeing that their senior developers are saying, I don't want to do that work. I don't even want to guide the AI to do that work because I've spent 20 years doing this. I should be doing major architecture. We still need somebody to babysit. When that AI code starts calling 3 a.m., pages for something's broken, when they get the notification that, hey, we just leaked all of our customer information out, that's when a lot of managers are going to go, yeah, we messed up. And they're going to come in and hire, right? That's going to be the difference. And we're seeing that today. We're seeing lots of stories like that today. Those guys that are still saying, I don't need junior developers, AI is going to do anything, they're one of 2 categories. They're either work for an AI company, right, and they're trying to push their product, or 2, they're a CEO or a high-level leader that read a magazine article on an airline, and they have no concept of what they're doing, but they think, I can go and do this. That's what's going to happen. But we're already seeing pushback, just like we saw pushback in the public cloud. We're going to move everything to the public cloud because it's going to be way cheaper. And then they move everything to the public cloud, and they're like, holy crap, that's like 5x what we were spending in our data centers. Because we didn't do it properly, we didn't do it with forethought. We didn't do it securely in the case of AI. Now your question was, remind me again.
Why should I train the junior developers and then they will leave my organization? The whole world seems to be like senior software developers.
So, because of, going back to that reason, if I've done this for 20 years, I'm not wanting to write a website for my marketing team. I don't want to even guide AI to go and do that. It's not worth my time. My senior developers on average are probably making, I want to use US because I don't know EU, right? I don't know the EU. But on average, about $150,000 to $180,000 plus a year. Do I want to give them $180,000 plus a year to fix bugs or do small projects? Absolutely not. And AI, it is a tool. It's not it's not a destination. If they think that junior AI or AI is going to replace their junior developers, it will in some things. AI will absolutely go and complete some projects for you. Will it do it good? Maybe. Will it create a bunch of technical debt? Probably, right? And this is going to add up. It's going to take, I don't even think it's going to take a year and a half. I would like to do a case study with some of these companies that say, I'm killing all my junior developers, I'm only going to keep 3 senior engineers, and AI is going to write all my code. Microsoft did it, we can do it. Well, Microsoft's being a little bit disingenuous there. When they say that AI is writing 30 to 40% of all our code, there's a difference between creation and generation, right? AI is not going out there and writing the application code. It's working with an engineer that's saying, do this, and it's actually doing the typing for you. And I agree with that. I'm an engineer. I shouldn't have to manually type the code. That takes a lot of time. You get no value out of it. AI can type 40 times faster than I can. It can actually document faster than I can. And that's another good use case, right? Let's look at this and say, we're scared of AI building code. Okay, maybe you should be. Then don't use it for that. What are some of the other things that developers do that absolutely slow down their engineers, that cost them time? I'm spending $80,000 a year for somebody to go in and document my code. What is AI really good at? It's good at documentation. There's no risk to documentation. If I can type my code and have AI document it for me, I've literally cut hundreds of hours out of a project. I've also made my boss think I'm a stud, right? They think I'm a rock star because now I'm the only one that's documented my code because nobody else wants to do it. It's boring work. Creating tests. Tests, and there are stories, there absolutely are. There's going to be edge cases. AI can create a test, and when it fails to do the test, this is where you get into things like deleting the database. It saw the test was failing. Rather than fixing the test, it said, well, I'll go change the production database so that my test passed. But you got to be watching that. You got to have the guardrails so it can't do that in the first place. But archaeology, those new developers that are coming in, they're still, the companies that still have junior developers, as we're seeing turnover, what's the best way for them to become very familiar with code? I can go sit, I'm going to make $110,000. I can go sit with my $180,000. Now I'm spending $300,000 for them to explain code to me. Or I can use AI, which is very good at going through and explaining what the code does. And that's, I won't say it's free, but it's way less than what I'm paying for my developers.
I think there is one more thing to that, is the university education or educational institutions, if you look at that, they are not able to ramp up at this particular pace, the way we see enterprise are doing this, and enterprise are coming up with this new innovation, but of course they don't have the same amount of money. So I think the current generation of junior developers has been stuck in one of the most unfortunate times because they are trained to write code, and now that has been replaced by AI. But to ramp up other skills, they haven't been trained on that. And maybe down in a couple of years, we will see that educational institutions are also ramping up the education for computer science and software engineers. And that time, we will have junior software engineers who are looking at more things than just writing code.
Yep, I agree with you. I think the same thing goes, I look at what you said about the junior developers in this time. I think of like COVID. The people that I really felt bad for in COVID were those guys that were that were juniors and seniors in high school during COVID because they lost all the stuff that the rest of us got from graduation, spending those years, right? We're seeing that same thing. There's this transition period where we're seeing AI develop. And the guys that are just now, and the girls that are just now coming out of college, they've got to adjust, and they're in the in-between period. The colleges aren't teaching it. They're going to have to go out and learn it on their own. But I submit to you, as a software engineer, you are constantly going out and learning on your own because even as AI is coming up, Java's changing, Go's changing. You know, there's new frameworks coming in mind. You got Rust versus React. You got all these things. If you want to keep up, you're going to have to do some of this on your own. Now, the one thing that I think is a little bit beneficial to AI is it is almost kind of a self-teaching product. If I don't understand what AI is doing, I can go in and I can ask it, and then I can go and verify it. Trust but verify, always with AI. But it helps me learn things that maybe I didn't know before, and I think people are coming in. So let me check real quick. Okay. Well, hell, we'll keep going. So it is almost a self-teaching tool. And I think that's one of the reasons that we see things like Lovable and Base 44 and Coder taking off is because there is a need for it. It's the DIY of software engineering now. It's, again, they're not going out, they're not trying to build Fortune, 500 authentication systems. I want to create an app. I've seen apps out there to track my kids, are they doing their chores? It doesn't really work for me. I wish I could change a couple things. AI is letting them do that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough for them. And we may have, we're going to see this, we're going to have thousands of apps that do the same thing. Most people are not going to try to productize those. They're not going to try to commercialize them. But those that do, they're going to find out real quick. If you vibe coded, you had no idea what you were doing, you relied completely on AI, you're going to leak authentication. And that's going to get shut down fairly quickly. As we go through, people are going to learn. AI is going to continue to learn. Today, AI is that junior developer just out of college. Knows theory, doesn't have experience. But as we look at these, look at Meta. They're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars for people to come in and help with AI. Why are they doing that? Because they know it's a future. AI is going to get better. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a mid-level developer, right? We're already seeing agents that can go out and do things on their own today. You still want to be a partner with them. You still want to trust them, but they're going out, they're autonomous, they can go out and do things on their own. I would say 5 or 7 years, maybe we'll see it as it will write code for us. All that the engineers are doing now. All the engineers are doing now are guiding, architecting. But I say 5 or 7 years, but to your point, AI is changing daily, right? We do a podcast where we talk about all the new models that come out. It's impossible to keep up with. 2 or 3 models are dropping every 2 days, right? Those that aren't dropping new, the other ones that are already out there improving. You cannot keep up with the speed of AI right now. Now we're just going to wait for it to level out. We're going to wait for the cream to rise to the top, but we got to be preparing for that. You can prepare the infrastructure for AI now for what it's going to be in the future.
I'm so sorry, I have another.
All right, no problem.
But I do have more questions. I will come to you at the booth.
Yeah, come by the booth, we'll talk more.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Peter.
But I can also come by later.
You come by later? All right. You guys were quiet. Any questions? All right. Well, then we'll call it done. Thank you, everybody.